videos because I can't see all my slides. Okay, here we go. So email deliverability, I think it's important just to define like what we mean by when we say that. And so this is the ability for CheckCherry or any email service provider to get emails to the inbox, right? Like that's the most important thing. So if you have good email deliverability, emails go to the inbox. If you have bad email deliverability, emails don't go to the inbox. And so let's take a look here. So our goal at CheckCherry is to offer best-in-class email deliverability. And we also understand that we'll never have 100% email deliverability. It's just impossible for us to offer. That being said, we'll strive for best-in-class and kind of continue to help you understand kind of what's going on and tips and so on to increase the chances that messages get to the inbox. So good email deliverability helps all customers.
Have I bought you those before? No, so bad. Have I bought you those before?
Hey, Matt, could you mute people?
I don't think I have permission to.
Yeah, that's why like it's not a little fucking Chris, man.
I wonder how I thought I made you a host, but that's interesting.
I think I am of the next one, but
okay, sorry. Okay. Good. Funny. So good email delivery helps all of our customers, right? There's a lot of important messages that go out from CheckCherry, and we want your messages to hit the inbox. If we had a magic wand, we would have 100% email deliverability. It would be awesome. It's really important component of our service. And so I think it's important because we have a variety of technical knowledge with our customers. And so I think it's important to understand that, kind of the process of email deliverability and how some of this works. But, long ago, email deliverability was rather simple, and it's not like this anymore, where you would basically send a message and there's a protocol called SMTP, and the person would receive it. And, it was pretty straightforward. And you might even manage your own mail server, right? Like I could email Matt and he could email me back, and we wouldn't pay anybody. It would be all free. And so that was cool, but we all hate spam. And depending on how old you are and how long you've had an email account, I mean, there was a period where people were like scared to give out email addresses. Like it was like, I don't want to get caught on, my email to get out there, and then I'm going to get spammed. And a number of things have made that a lot better. People don't seem to fear giving out an email address like they once did. One of them is the proliferation of email service providers. And email service providers help people send and receive mail. And so we all use them, and spam filtering is a feature of a good ESP. And so I would argue, even if you were, let's say you were using Gmail and they weren't very good at filtering spam out and you were getting a lot of spam, you might even go so far as to cancel and leave. And I think Gmail has some of the best spam filtering. I've been happy with it as a user, but it's really an important feature for the email service providers to offer good spam filtering. And it's got to be accurate, obviously. But some examples of email service providers: Gmail, Outlook 365, Yahoo Mail. SendGrid is more of like an infrastructure email service provider. We actually use them at CheckCherry. MailChimp would be an example of somebody who's going to help you send mass email, right? You're not going to do that through Gmail. They're going to allow you to send maybe to 500 people a day or something. And so MailChimp comes in as a specialist. And CheckCherry, in many ways, it acts as an email service provider, particularly if you have the feature set up where there's reply tracking and all the emails get logged to the booking, even if you and the client aren't logged in at CheckCherry. It's a really great feature, but in many ways, CheckCherry is also an email service provider. These are stats from CheckCherry over the past 90 days. And these are mailbox providers. So this is where our customers are sending email, basically. And you'll notice there's only a few players here, right? There's Gmail, which is the personal side where you get a free Gmail account. There's Google Apps, which is the business side where you can have your own domain. There's Microsoft 360, Yahoo, and everybody else. And Google Gmail account for 67%. And so for the presentation, I'm going to more or less focus on kind of how they operate and they work. But a lot of the principles will apply to, other like Microsoft. It's kind of the same game, so to speak. So let's say I send a message now, and let's say I'm using MailChimp as my, I'm sending them email blast. That's going to go, and that's going to go through Gmail's spam filter / algorithm. And they're going to determine if that goes to the inbox, or maybe that goes over to their promotions tab, or maybe that goes to spam. But they have an automatic algorithm that's going to define where that's going to get placed. And I think it's with Gmail specifically, I think it's better to think of it as not a spam algorithm, but more like this idea of like a placement algorithm. They're trying to be helpful and to put messages in places that makes sense, so to speak.
A quick question.
Jed, one quick question. We had a question of what is Google Apps if it's not just Gmail?
So it's basically what Google Apps will allow you to do is you pay per month per email address, but instead of having @gmail.com, you can have @yourdomain.com. So it's kind of like a white labeled Gmail, so to speak. So if I'm in Gmail, like here's like the side nav, right? And so for the Gmail users, this is going to be really boring, but not everybody uses Gmail. Or the web UI, but here's your inbox. They even automatically classify messages as important, which is interesting. And then there's also things like the promotions tab, and there's spam, which of course we would expect. So here's some docs from Gmail. And I found this interesting. So they have incoming mail, and they basically classify it as spam or inbox categories. And so you got spam, which is where we don't want to be. This is not good email deliverability. And so, yep, there we go. We don't want to be there. And they even have, this is for Gmail, Google Apps users, so to speak, to say, hey, look, like if Gmail is sending emails from people you know to spam, you can do things, right? You can remove the email from spam. You can add the sender to contacts. You can create a filter. Like they've got some tools, so to speak. And here's an example of a spam message that I received. And in the web UI, they even have this button to say, don't report this as spam. And this is, clearly this is spam, right? Like we can all just look at this. It's really easy. Get funding, apply now, all kinds of fonts. Yeah. Percentages, discounts, prepay, I mean, you name it. So, and I've never heard of them, of course. So there's also the inbox categories. And so one thing that is interesting is like in Gmail's mind or Google's mind, primary, social, promotions, updates, and forms are all considered inbox placement, right? And so here's an example. They're right up at the top. So I've got inbox selected on the left. And you can turn these on and off. There's settings, but they're on. They're all 5 are on by default. And you can turn them on and off as you see fit. And so here I'm in the Forms tab. And this was just today, and QuickBooks, their newsletter is in the Forms tab, and it was kind of confusing to me. So I don't use this. I use Mac Mail, and I hook up Google Apps, and I didn't have this turned on, but that's kind of how that works. And then what's really confusing, or what I guess what's surprising, is like I think people think of inbox and primary. So if I click inbox and I'm at primary, like that's my inbox, but all tabs according to Gmail are all inbox. If that makes sense. But I think most people are like, if I click inbox, that's going to be my inbox, not the other tabs. So how does this classification like done? What are some insights? And so this is from Google Docs or Google's documentation, and they basically apply machine learning and who the email comes from. And so that's in part check cherry, right? Our IP addresses, are the domain. It's also you, the business, the sender. It's also the type of content that's in the message. So is this a proposal? Is this like, hey, pick a template? Is this a 10th email to, are you going to hire me, to a lead? And then also how they've interacted, how Gmail users have interacted with similar content. So not just the specific Gmail user, but as a whole. So this is like the whole idea of like big data and machine learning at play. And so they've kind of got their magic going to help place things and combat spam. And overall, it works pretty well, I can say, as a user. One thing I found interesting is in the promotions is deals, offers, newsletters, and other call to action emails will show up in promotions. And I found this interesting because, like, what are other call to action emails? Well, check cherry, I mean, potentially a call to action to choose a template, a call to action to accept a proposal, something like that. That could fall under their promotions algorithm. and be placed there. And it would be intentional, right? And then here on the forms, you'll see they have discussion boards and mailing list. And so I guess that's why the QuickBooks email came in there. And that was an announcement from QuickBooks about feature updates. And so there's also user level settings that can come into play. So basically, they say that they take a lot of things into account, but the most important one is the direct input from the actual Gmail account user. And so Gmail account users can move messages from one tab to another. And so that can have a role in terms of, a message that goes to one Gmail user goes to this tab, and another Gmail user goes to another tab, so to speak. So email delivery rates will be dependent on both CheckCherry and you as a sender. So the things that we do, and I'll cover this in a little bit, but like, the protocol, best practices, that thing, our other customer sending habits will impact all customers, but also you as a sender it'll impact your delivery. And also the deliverability, I guess if you're sending spam outside of CheckCherry, could also impact your deliverability from CheckCherry, based on kind of their machine learning and stuff they do. So how do we at CheckCherry ensure inbox placement? So one, we do the proper email authentication. And so these are things that basically are telling email service providers that receive email, like, hey, I am authorized to send this message, basically. And SPF is one way to do it. DKIM and DMARC, you don't need to worry about what these are, but they're just configurations that you need to set up to ensure that email is properly authenticated and that you can send on behalf of your domain. It's important to note we don't allow one to impersonate other domains or senders without permission. This is called spoofing. And this is why CheckCherry, all of CheckCherry emails come from @checkcherry-mail.com, is because it basically allows us to ensure that everybody's email is authenticated all the time. And so another one is the IP addresses that we use. And so there's like things like reverse DNS lookup that we have, and the IP addresses we use are only shared among CheckCherry customers. So the plus side is like we're not using shared IP addresses that other companies or anything of that nature would use, but other CheckCherry customers could impact your deliverability, right? If somehow like a big spammer got on the platform and got a million messages out, it would just really damage everybody's deliverability. So spam rates are really, really important in the messages that come from CheckCherry. So we regularly monitor spam rates in Postmaster tools. I'll show you some of that a little bit later. We offer spam and unsubscribe features that are kind of native to CheckCherry to help basically gather other data and help make it easy for people to get off email lists. With the automated messages, we have some customers that can be more aggressive than maybe I would be in terms of following up with emails or leads, that type of thing. And the unsubscribe feature is a great way for the recipients to kind of opt out. We address problematic senders, and we've done that in the past where we see, somebody's got some habits that are not good or whatever. And we've never had to cancel an account. I think overall we have people that are good senders, and we have some mechanisms in place that prevent new accounts from just getting on and sending a lot, that type of stuff. So we do have internal controls set in place, but these are the tools that Google gives us. And so here's the CheckCherry-mail.com domain, and here's our spam rate. And you'll see there are spikes where it gets above 0.5%, which is not ideal. That could impact deliverability. Overall, the spam rates are very low. Many days there are no spam complaints. It's just the volume of messages we send is not that high. So I would say, I think we're over 100,000 messages in a given month that you guys are sending through CheckCherry. But, compare that with QuickBooks and how much they might be sending on their mass email, for example. So those spikes, do happen depending on sending volume. But there's many days that there's nothing. Here's our IP reputation. So again, past 60 days, all green. They do have days that they don't show data. They've always done this as long as we monitored it. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think I've ever seen yellow or red or anything in this. And if I have, it's been long ago. Here is the DKIM SPF DMARC success rates, 100%. We configure this, so we monitor it. We pay for a service to monitor DMARC stuff. And then the domain reputation stuff. And I've never seen this be anything but high. So The tools that Google gives us doesn't really, it just seems, like things are good in that we monitor pretty well. We also have internal monitoring. So this is the spam reports. And when we see this stuff, it's like 1 out of 2, the most, 1 out of 223 messages, marked as spam. I mean, like there's not really much to address. And sometimes we see the weirdest messages be marked as spam, like a payment receipt, for example. And I don't know if users accidentally mark it or what. I'm not quite sure. But it's important to know your sending practices will also impact deliverability for your account. And so a customer example, this was a blocked message, but we had a customer who said, hey, I'm getting this blocked email, and he chatted with us. And oh no, let's take a look. It's an Apple mail and that type of thing. And we looked at the article, and basically Apple, this is again similar to what Gmail is doing, but basically they track a sender's reputation. So again, that's CheckCherry, and also the sender would be your business. And then run content checks and user feedback, and then make a decision. And so we looked at all the Apple Mail domains, and this was the only rejected email for MacMail, me.com, and iCloud.com in the past several days. And so, however, the reporting, went back. So we didn't see anything. So it's really interesting. Your sending habits and your customers' actions can impact your deliverability. And so no other customers were impacted, just this one. And when we looked at his account, he was sending a daily email of like, after somebody booked for like 30 days or something with tips and tricks or something like that. And I suggested, hey, maybe it's a little too much for people. I don't know, just rethink it. So what are some tips for hitting the inbox more often? You can also increase, inbox placement. So some of the stuff that Gmail mentions is not to mix different types of content in the same message. So for example, don't include promotions in a sales receipt message. I didn't know that one, actually. And that's one of their things. And I suppose that's because they want to get their tabs right. Don't mark internal messages as spam. So if your staff's getting lead emails and they're marking them as spam because they don't want to see them anymore, that's going to damage your reputation and could negatively impact like future messages. So that's another thing. Don't purchase email addresses from other companies. And I would even argue don't purchase them and send them outside of CheckCherry, because they're monitoring content as well. And
I
don't
just want to hop in on that, Judd. So if you do not have opt-in permission to send an email to somebody, you are spamming. You are not in compliance with CAN spam laws. Yep, you absolutely have to have opt-in permission to send an email to somebody. So just something to keep in mind with, if you get a list from a wedding show or something like that, they absolutely need to have that permission, and just be careful on those.
That's what we see most often is somebody will come through and they want to upload a lead list, which is something, again, we do features that we don't allow, such as you can't bulk email from CheckCherry. And that has everything to do with email deliverability. And you also can't bulk email upload leads, because why would you want to bulk upload leads if you don't want to send to them, basically? And yeah, you're right. The most common example is, hey, I was at a wedding show, and they gave me a list of everybody who attended, but those people didn't show up at your booth, right? They don't know you. And so you're basically going to damage your email deliverability. You messed me up, Matt. Oh, yeah. Don't nag via email. So this is also like CheckCherry makes it easy to do automated messages. And I think it's just important not to nag too much, right? You want to be helpful. It's fine to do a touch, 1, 2, maybe 3. But if they're not responding via email to select a template or, purchase your services, it's unlikely they're going to respond to other emails, and you're probably damaging your deliverability. Don't overwhelm people with email. It's easy to send email. It can be like you put your sender hat in your business. It's like, hey, I mean, a lot of, it's really common. Hey, can I automatically send an email to get upsells? Can I automatically send an email to do this? And maybe it's not so helpful, basically. Don't send image only emails. So that's another tactic that will probably land in spam, like a flyer or something. Somebody like you have a graphic designer create something as an image with text and do this and that, and you send that's the only thing you do. Your messages should have a balance of text and images. Don't send spammy looking emails. I mean, the email I showed earlier with the different fonts and all that stuff. I mean, I think it's possible somebody might not even read it and just mark it as spam, right? Like it's entirely possible. But I think that also that content might not go well for you. Some other things to use, don't use CSS, HTML and CSS to hide the content in your messages. Now, I don't think any of our customers would do this. I haven't seen anybody do this, but they do list this as a thing to, and the example would be like you have text that's like the same color as the background so that you can't see it. And you're trying to like fake out, the algorithm. Web links in the message body should be visible and easy to understand. So like basically people should know what to expect when they click, right? They're using AI to help identify things and make it, message subject should be accurate and not misleading. And so I think this is often forgot about that, your message subjects are important to your messages and to email deliverability. So, sending like a hey subject line, do you still interested in hiring me? That might go to spam, a typo there. I guess I got some other things. Yeah, don't send spam in the different colors. And I think like really importantly is just to consider your recipients, right? Respect their inbox. Like, I think that's going to really help your email deliverability overall. So when sending emails, aim to be helpful and respect your recipient's inbox, right? Email deliverability is dependent on check cherry, your sending patterns and recipient actions. And so I think this is really like where we don't have full control over the situation, right? So we can't offer 100% inbox deliverability. It's just impossible. And so we can do our best practices and education and monitoring and all that stuff. And email placement algorithms are consistently changing and never 100% accurate. And so I would even argue the chances that email placement algorithms are changing is more likely than the type of messages that are going from check cherry are changing. It's pretty consistent what we see over time. And I've got one more section, Matt, you don't know this, but corporate, school, and government deliverability. And it deserves its own section because I feel like this is like the most common, hey, my email's not getting delivered. And when we ask, hey, can I get an email address? It's like typically like corporate, school, or government. And I feel like this is kind of, it's like your proposal is trying to get delivered and like the IT/spam settings at corporate, school, government, aren't allowing it basically. And they might even just they might not even be like blocking it. They'll still accept it. It just might like vanish and be quarantined somewhere else in the IT department's, spam setting and so on. And so again, it's the most common feedback on deliverability. The short of it is they tend to hire dedicated services to mitigate spam. And I've seen like AI services and they basically set your MX records up and so on. They do have overly aggressive settings at times, I would argue. I don't have evidence to back this up, but I would suspect also that if you have staff and, complaining about, hey, I'm getting spam, and you're the IT guy, like what's the obvious and easy solution, to ramp up the spam settings, so to speak, just kind of slide that thing up. And that will then have an impact on all email. And they're just overall harder to reach, in general. And I think there's a lot of internal communication and that type of thing. But corporate, school, government is, a tough, most common feedback we get on deliverability. And it's my belief that it has more to do with the spam settings than anything that check cherry can necessarily do. If you ever have feedback, let us know. If you talk to somebody, if they have any insights, if there's something we can do, we would love to have action items to improve deliverability at check cherry. Oh, and I guess that's it. And so I guess I can stop sharing and we open it up to questions. So you can raise your hand. And
we've got one from Kirk.
Yeah.
I don't know if Kirk, if you're there, if you want to ask it out loud. If not, I can read it.
Yeah, thanks. So we have so we just sort of we're new to check cherry. So we have a form email that we save in a Google Doc, and we just have a hyperlink to our check cherry booking page. And a couple of customers have said that they didn't receive it. So does putting a check cherry link just into what is otherwise a plain text email sent from our business Gmail to their inbox, does that affect deliverability?
I could see, if it's just a link and you've never communicated with them from Check Cherry, I would say you want to have more content in there, right? Is that so?
Even if it's from the sender is, joyboxphotobooths@gmail.com to jeffsmith@gmail.com.
Yeah, and I don't know. So in other words, it's outside of Check Cherry, right?
What is?
The email is not being sent through Check Cherry's mail servers.
Correct. Yes.
It just had the link.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason that would particularly, a Check Cherry link would have anything to do with, there's a service where, and I can send a link afterwards, but where you can check whether a website is safe, so to speak. Often it's used for like WordPress, sites that have been hacked and that type of thing. But is it just a link? There's no content in there at all.
Yeah, it's just, it just says book your booth, and then it takes us to our.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably, I would probably have some more content and see if that happens. Also, when you say a couple of people, like, out of how many, right? Like,
right. It's a small sample size. We just,
yeah. And so it's just tough to say. And I'm a fan.
And I'm sure no one else has ever had the issue where a potential customer said that they didn't get an email, and what they really meant was they just didn't look very hard.
Well, I mean, it's tough for us, right? Because we don't see or know what happens. And somebody could say, I didn't get an email, and it's in the promotions tab for all I know. We don't know per se. I mean, all we can see is what's going on our side with IP addresses, spam rates, and so on.
And one of the things we see too on those on links in general is basically like having a raw link, where it's just http:/whatever, seems to kind of get penalized versus like if you can kind of make it like a pretty link where it says click here for text, and in that, or click here for more information, things like that. For whatever reason, they seem to prefer you to have it be some words rather than just a raw link, is kind of what we've seen. So Dan.
Thanks, guys.
So I have a comment and a question. I would argue that coming from a Gmail to an organization looks spammy, because businesses do business with other businesses. They usually don't do businesses with customers.
Oh, okay. So if he's sending from an @gmail.com versus a Google Apps,
yeah, that's probably
fair enough. Yeah, sure. I don't.
More sensitive.
This is one of the frustrating things is like we can like guesstimate all day long, but like what's going on over there with their algorithm is like
everybody's different. I can tell you what I do for my work, but not them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, you know about some spam, huh? Some spam.
I know stuff. Okay, let me just share my screen. I get this all the time. It's I think I asked you guys about it and you probably gave me the answer, but like whenever I reply in an email to Check Cherry,
yep,
I get an email back from Google.
Yep.
I guess. I don't know. But saying that somebody is
yeah. So
like, how do I stop this from happening? It's so annoying.
A couple of things. Have you reached out to Google about it?
No.
I would ask them, but the short of it is what they're doing is they're trying to be helpful, and they know that your business is Go Photo Booth, and they know that they're your email service provider, and they know that somebody who's not your email service provider is sending you an email with the front of Go Photo Booth. So they're like, whoa, don't transfer any money. This is not from Tom in the accounting department saying transfer $1 million.
I get it.
That's what they're trying to do.
But so why am I receiving it? Like, I'm assuming because I'm getting like it's also sending a copy of this email that it's sending a copy of my reply to the admin, which is me, and then Google's flagging it.
There is a setting in Check Cherry where the sender can be Check Cherry and not your business. And so you could try that. That should work.
Oh, that's very familiar. Where do I do that?
And so let me share my screen. Let's see here. So basically, and this is a common question that comes up a lot, and they're trying to be helpful. You think they would catch on after the 10 millionth email, but they don't. But when you're editing your automated messages, you can change who your sender is. And so by default, we generally, we figure those messages are probably going to go to your customer. So we'll say the sender is you, your business contact email. But you can change that to Check Cherry, and then any messages that we send to that address are going to have Check Cherry in the name, and Google shouldn't have a problem with that. But you would only typically want to do that for messages that are going to
Just to you.
your business. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that for messages to your customer, because your customers don't know you as Check Cherry. They know you as Go Booth. So, and that's kind of why we don't do it automatically, because we don't necessarily know who's, we may try to be a little bit more smart about this in the future and have maybe an automatic setting or something, but that's kind of
That would
why.
be an option. Let us know how that goes. You have a whitelist set up, I'm assuming, for the domain would be another option.
I don't think how.
You can go to like filters and whitelist domains and stuff and say, hey, any email from @CheckCherryMail, always put it in the inbox. Well, I guess that's not the issue though. The issue is showing an alert.
I think I tried doing that before.
Yeah. And so,
you know what? Like, I do pay for Google Mail, so that comes with support. So I will harass them.
Yeah. I mean, if you find out, let me know, but I don't, this is where for us, it's like, we don't have full control over the situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Good question. Common.
And we have a question from Aid. If
Adi, I think.
Adi, okay.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Quick question. I noticed lately though, when I receive a lead from a Yahoo account and like I do the normal automation stuff, they don't get delivered. I've noticed like at least for 4 to 5 different leads that I've had in recent time, and I'm like, okay, why is this lady not replying back? Then when I'll check, it's just going to show delivered. So in my head, I know it's going to spam. And luckily, I called a lady last week, like literally a day before the event. I was like, hey, we have like this beautiful conversation. Are you still interested? I was like, you never sent me an email. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Just go to your spam, search. But I've noticed that a lot for Yahoo. Is that something?
It's possible.
Okay.
I don't, but the thing is, so a couple of things. One is we don't get reporting back on whether an email gets to the inbox. And that's obvious reasons that they're not going to give that, right? Because then spammers can basically use that information to circumvent their settings. So we never know. We know if a message is delivered or not. I mean, that's basically what they do with it. We don't know. So I'm unsure in terms of, whether it went to spam. I've also had people where they, who is it that was, they didn't, there was a delay on, I'm sorry for not getting back to you. This was in my spam folder type thing. And so maybe, I don't even know, like, is it even in there or is that just an excuse? We don't know.
Yeah, and as far as some action items, really, the main thing you can do is kind of experiment with the content of your message. We do send a lot of messages to Yahoo. I know a lot of them do get through. I know they don't all go to spam. I'm sure various things, affect which particular ones do, but it unfortunately it's a lot of just kind of experimenting with your content. Going back to some of the things Judd said about, if you've got different font sizes or too much going on, or if you have a really plain email with nothing but a link, in general, kind of what you want to do on those emails is make them look, unique, custom to your business, include some context about your business. Don't just have a simple link with, try not to make it look too automated, too, generic. And then, avoid big images, avoid images with text in them, some of those things that Judd was mentioning. And then the other thing that we see too is certain words tend to be problematic. So if you're talking about free or discounts or anything like that, that tends to be, it's kind of like that message that Judd was showing up in his spam folder where, it's saying, hey, 5 to 10 million funding.
Right.
And that kind of goes back to, if you have dollar amounts in your email, sometimes they pick up on that and say, oh, this is, they must be trying to raise money. I've seen emails before with with PayPal and Venmo and things like that, instructions for payment, which is great for making it easy to pay. But the problem is, if they see a bunch of Venmo links or Venmo text or things like that, it just looks too spammy to them, and it's more likely to look too similar to something else that's getting flagged.
Thank you, Matt.
Marissa has her hand up.
I was just going to comment that with Gmail and Yahoo, they don't like each other. And I work, my full-time gig is at a college, right? So the whole thing about messages going to spam, it is very common for Gmail messages to go to the spam folder when you're sending to a Yahoo address.
It's funny.
And so both from my personal Gmail to a Yahoo and from
Like
a Yahoo address coming to the business Gmail account at the college, it goes to spam. And the only thing that we have been told is to ask people to add us to their address book and then to click on the trusted sender.
Right.
Those are the only things that our IT department has told us.
Yeah, it's tough, and you find something that works for a while, and then the rules change. So and then Anna has a really good comment, I think, in the chat. If a corporate or government point of contact has strict spam filters, but I tell them to email me first and then I respond with an invoice,
right,
likely to receive an email.
Right.
And I think that's a really smart idea, where and we do see, for the most part, what we tend to see in our, when we look at specific messages, is that the first message sent out is tough. It's unprompted. They don't have any history of activity between you, and so responding to that, I think, is very, to a message.
And if it's an offer to get money, right?
The other thing we see is, you'll be chatting back and forth and everything's great, and then 20 emails in, all of a sudden one gets dropped, and it's tough. That comes down to basically just either they don't like something about the content. You sent a design email and it's got a really big image, and they're like, oh, this is, can be something like that. But it can also be just the frequency of messages can play a role too. If they see, maybe they'll 2 or 3 messages that are fine, and then if they see 10 from you, all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is too much, and so less is definitely more, I think, on email. Avoiding lots and lots of follow-ups, and avoiding too many emails, I think, is something that can be helpful as well. And then
Dan, is Dan's hand still up? You got more? No. Oh, he put it down. There's also,
yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah. Well, I was going to have, a couple of alternatives to sending email. I'll just mention, we do have, if you're having problems with a message going out, we do have pretty much any page on CheckCherry that you would send somebody to. You can generally just get a link you can share with them. So on the top of the proposals, there's a copy link, and you can feel free to copy that and send it via a different email client. If you've been going back and forth with somebody that and it's quite likely you might have better luck with your personal Gmail or personal corporate account than
possible, right?
And so copying and pasting that. I'll mention that we do allow sending via SMS. So if you prefer to, send SMS, that does require a Twilio account. So if you get connected with, if you get a Twilio account set up and linked over, you can send basically anything you can do via email, you can also do via SMS. And then one thing I think I would say that we've seen email deliverability become more of an issue in the, last year or two. I think as we've had, a lot of customers switch over from other platforms. And early on in CheckCherry, we were really focused around online booking. And what we're going for with that is avoiding a lot of that email and propose, collecting emails and sending them proposals and things like that. So, the best way to not have to worry about email deliverability is to not have to send an email. So, you know, if you do have an easy way to you know, get, you know, book online and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point, right? Because there's more people. Yeah, proposals are a big deal, and we're going to have some cool stuff coming out with proposals because a lot of people use them. But that proposal email seems to be probably the most problematic when we look into somebody saying, "Hey, my email is not getting delivered," and it's also common like, "Hey, none of my emails are getting delivered." And say, "Hey, send some examples over," and then it's like,
So not justice.
you know,
Payment.
so. But you know, feel free to reach out anytime, obviously via chat. You know, Dan, let us know what you find out on that, and we'll be.
The one thing about the email delivery is that you guys do give the ability to see if the customer read the email or not.
Mhm.
So if they haven't read it, it's probably in the spam. So then you could probably follow up with a phone call.
Or could be in promotions if you're a Gmail user.
Sure. Yeah.
They're not checking it. I mean, that's where I think, I don't think a lot of people are checking those tabs, is what I would say. And like I say, according to Gmail, I don't necessarily agree with this, but they would consider any of those tab promotions to be inbox placements. So you could have perfect email deliverability and you're sending an email, right? And it goes to promotions, basically. And that's like desired by them. They're trying to be helpful. And I don't know, like that's not, when I click inbox, I expect to see all the emails in my inbox, not in my inbox in the priority tab or primary tab.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there? So we'll record this and we'll send it out to everybody who couldn't make it. Our next webinar is just going to be a general Q&A. So what we've noticed is when we do the webinars, people want to ask questions. And so we thought, well, hey, let's just have a Q&A, you know, and I don't know exactly how we'll do it. We'll open it up and people can ask questions about, you know, check cherry or, hey, I want to do this or whatever. And we'll see what that does. And then we'll get back to more topics. But it's just really common that people will want to kind of hop in. Hey, well, I got you. Let's answer some questions. So we thought we'll do a Q&A. It'll be 2 weeks from now, same time. It's already on the website. We'll send an email out. We hope you join us. And if you ever have feedback on the webinars, ideas, chat with us, respond to an email, whatever it may be, just give us feedback. We're open to it. We're happy with the turnout, and we think, you know, there's a lot more opportunity here to help people. Like I say, one of the most common pieces of feedback we received when we were at the last trade show, when we talked to customers in person, was how do I get the most out of Check Cherry? And I don't know exactly what that means or how to get there, but I think, you know, the webinar is a step in the right direction. Cool. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for joining. We ended a little earlier and appreciate it, and chat with us anytime you need help. So thanks for coming. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.